How long has she been there for?
A little over a week.
Was it fairly quick from the time she left?
Friday night.
Friday night?
Yeah.
So where was she between Thursday night and Friday night?
In Tweed.
With you?
Yeah.
How long was she alive for?
Almost 24 hours, not quite.
Okay. Russ? You're doing the right thing here. Okay.
Well, again, my interest is in making my wife's life a little easier. And with her family as well.
Well, we share that
But
interest.
there's no... your time in Ottawa is wasted, really. I'll tell you where the membership cards are.
Where are they?
They're in the house there, but...
In Ottawa?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Some in the camera bag, which they would have found in my office.
Mm-hmm.
And in the when you walk into the office on the left side, there's a desk of drawers, set of drawers, like a filing cabinet, wooden, IKEA. In one of the top two drawers, and there's a plastic divider.
Yeah.
And there's inside there are two memory cards.
Okay.
Which are blank, but I'm sure they can be
And whose images are on those cards?
well, I've erased them, but I expect you'll be able to draw images of Jessica and I.
What about Marie?
There may be images on there as well.
And the two women from September?
Yep.
Okay.
That was just some of the video released today from the interrogation of convicted murderer Russell Williams. His sentencing hearing continues this afternoon. He pled guilty to 88 charges yesterday, as you recall, 2 of murder, 2 of sexual assault, the rest to do with fetish-related break-and-enters. The victims' families are reading impact statements to the court. And as we've told you, Williams hid his double life for years. While commanding one of Canada's top military bases, as a colonel, he committed a slew of heinous crimes, including 2 murders, 2 sexual assaults, and those break-and-enters I mentioned. It was those break-and-enters that eventually led police to Williams, but it was too late. Actually, they were also found some footprints and from tire treads around the murder scene of Marie-France Como, and they had held they had a blockade stopping cars and doing matches, and they found a match to Colonel Williams, and that's what led them to him. The question is, could it have been stopped earlier? Was this some sort of pattern police missed? Well, Dave Perry is my next guest. He's interesting. He's former lead investigator with Toronto's Homicide Squad and Sex Crimes Unit. He also teaches interrogators how to do what they do, how to interview suspects in the police room, and we've had some interesting conversations watching this go by. First of all, Dave Perry, your initial reaction to watching that tape of his interrogation?
Yeah, I think there were some classic interrogation techniques being deployed. I think most people will find it quite surprising that these techniques, very soft, very gentle techniques, are being applied to somebody who's, accused of such horrendous crimes. But these are techniques that we teach and that we use in policing in Canada, and have been proven to be very, very successful. Not like the television depiction of how we do interrogations, for sure.
Mm-hmm. What's your assessment of who Colonel Williams is?
Well, I think a lot of people would like to give him notoriety and compare him to Paul Bernardo and others who've been convicted before him. But you know what? I find him just to be a very arrogant man. I think he was an arrogant man in his professional life in the military. And I think he's somebody that perhaps got bored with his portfolio and decided to act out and to fulfill himself through his sexual deviance. He's just somebody that has a very rich fantasy life. And I think he believed that he could go out and do it. and not get caught, and he liked doing it. I think that's really the simplest way to put it.
Really? So that's interesting and also scary, because that means that this kind of scenario could appear anywhere, where you have somebody who is completely ambitious and who has attained a high degree of status in society, who can lead this kind of double life.
Well, I mean, whenever we look at sex offenders, we always try and teach that you're not looking for the classic monster. Now, this guy brings it to a whole new level. He had the keys to Canada, and I would suggest the keys to many, many other countries. And he was able to lead that kind of a life and carry on that kind of a profile and fool everybody in terms of what his dark side was all about. But really, when you drill down through, sexual behavior, sexual deviant behavior, he's sort of typical, if you will. He's somebody that can lead a dark life and carry on and keep secret his deviant behavior. So
this is classic sex offender stuff.
It is classic sex offender stuff. What makes this obviously a real story is who he is and his profile. And of course, the heinous nature of his crimes. He escalated from somebody that was doing fetish-type crimes, breaking into houses, stealing women's lingerie, all very alarming and very concerning crimes. But who could read into that he was going to escalate to the point that, unfortunately, he did?
How does an interrogator, a police interrogator, get a guy like that you've just described, really smart, thinks he's gotten away with it? Mm-hmm. How does he walk in with just a boot print and a tire tread and get the confession that Detective Sergeant Jim Smith got from him?
Well, I know Detective Sergeant Jim Smith, and he's a very, very skilled interrogator. And I would suggest to you that he walked into that room with an awful lot more than just this boot print and tire print that we've heard about. And we start peeling back the layers. It starts with rapport building. You've got to develop some kind of a rapport with the individual that you're talking to. Again, staying away from aggressive techniques and walking through methodically and peeling back the layers and eventually dropping the evidence bomb and showing the individual that you have a lot of evidence. And as I'm starting to hear more about the confession, I thought that it was a very tactful way and a very skillful way that evidence was generally applied and shown to this individual that there was no way of getting out from under, starting with the boot prints, the tire prints, moving into suggestions that there are search warrants going on at his home, knowing that there's going to be evidence in the house. And we look at, behavior from past behavior. We know that sex offenders who are doing these kind of crimes, they don't get rid of all of their evidence. They're going to keep it. Usually they keep it in their own houses. So you're starting to play cards one at a time. And I think Williams realized at some point that the officer's hand was much stronger than his, and he felt compelled to finally confess, and he did.
He confessed everything.
He confessed everything, and that's not completely unusual. Depends on the type of offender. But I would suggest that a guy like Williams, as horrible a deviant sex offender that he is, he also, on the other side of his life, carried an extremely high portfolio, one that's filled with duty and pride. And once he's caught, once it's proven to him that we have all the evidence, that the police have all the evidence, he's going to feel compelled to confess, and I think for a lot of reasons. Some of them duty, some of them pride, some of them might be for his family, and we can only hope that some of it was for the families of the victims.
Some would say he wouldn't care. He wouldn't care about that. And the other question is, how could he? I know you're not a psychiatrist, but I mean, being an interrogator, you have to do some sort of psychology to get in the minds of the people that you're interviewing.
Yes.
So how would it be that he would care what happened to his wife when he was making women victims, when he was preying on women in society? Why would he care what his wife thought in the house?
That's an excellent question, and one that we may never know the answer to. I can only tell you this. When I brought new investigators into the Toronto Police Sex Crimes Unit, the first thing I told them is don't ever try and understand sex offenders. Get to know them and understand their behavior, but if you try and rationalize or come up with a reason why or how they operate, it'll just drive you crazy. Now, to be a good investigator, you just got to focus on what it is they do, learn their behavior, and learn how to catch them. And then the last step, learn how to walk into an interview room and get a confession. That's really what it's all about.
Dave Perry, thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, former Toronto Police Detective Sergeant Dave Perry speaking to me today.